If you're a video content creator, then this video is for you because we're going to talk about everyone's favorite subject, which is client notes. We've all been there. We've poured our heart and soul into a project. We've been so proud. We render, we export, we upload to the client. We sit back in satisfaction, sending off that email, waiting to hear these fantastic words of "you did a great job," only to see the email show up and
we love it. But we have a few notes.
Do we have another angle of the shot?
It's too fast-paced. If you just punch
we
in
have
the
another
picture,
angle of the shot?
Establishing shot.
Sorry, we have another good shot.
we don't want the color here.
It needs to be saturated. Can we just swap out the music?
we feel insulted. We feel like we're not good enough. We feel like the client doesn't respect the work that we put into these types of projects, and they just don't understand the boundaries that we have on our side. But I think that there's more to it than that. Now look, I totally understand the frustration of client notes. I have received some insane notes throughout the last several years of being a video editor. This one time, I had a client send back a note to me with a Photoshop image overlaid on top of it, and they told me that I missed my logo placement by 2 pixels. 2 pixels! What? Another time I had a client send me an example that they had approved. I based my edit based off of that template. They came back and said that it was too slow. I did it based off of the template that you sent me.
What?
And the last one, the most crazy one that I received, was an email that read back simply, "I hate it. Completely missed the mark." Now look, I don't want to confuse things by making the impression that clients should not have a say in the content that you're creating for them. They should have the ability to give you notes. They're paying top dollar for you to solve problems for their particular business, and they need to get it right. The problem isn't notes themselves, it's the boundaries that we place around notes and the way in which we expect them to be delivered that becomes the issue. And I think that those things fall into 3 general buckets. The first one is lack of boundaries where notes are concerned, and then lack of clarity on the scope. And the last one is the vision and positioning of the client themselves. And the great news about this is that most of these problems can be eliminated, or at least significantly reduced, within the discovery and pre-production phase of your client engagement. So before you even hit record, you should have already eliminated most of the issues surrounding client notes to begin with. So talking about lack of boundaries where notes are concerned, these are all things that I've kind of picked up over the last several years of editing that have significantly saved me time in terms of setting the boundaries in which clients can interact with me where notes are concerned. So the first thing that I put in all of my contracts, in my invoices, in my estimates, in my contact and calls with them is a statement that sounds something similar to this. The client is entitled to blank rounds of consolidated notes from all decision makers combined in one document. Any subsequent changes will be billed at the then current hourly rate. This is really something to avoid what my dear friend Asher Lewis, who's a phenomenal editor, told me is death by 1,000 cuts. It's this idea that you can keep piling on one more little change in subsequent emails that cause me to have to go back and reopen this project yet another time. The second clause that always finds itself into my contracts is a drop dead date. So there's something that reads like this. This project will conclude on this particular date. Any subsequent work to this date will require a new contract with a new scope of work. Now this again is to pad the deck for you to not have this ongoing revision chain that just keeps coming because there's another thing that they get to pile on top of the work that you're doing. Now the good news here is that we've never actually really had to enforce either of these clauses. And the great thing is that it becomes my discretion to actually implement those particular changes for the client because I want to do it based off of my own goodwill and relationship building. But what these 2 clauses in particular do is set the expectation on what we want the client to give back to us, and they contractually know that we have boundaries set in place so they can't keep pushing the limit in terms of the things that they are requesting from us as the contractor. This has saved us an infinite amount of time and energy, and at least we can just allude to the fact of like, hey, you had 2 notes, this now counts as your 3rd round, so if you want to make any other changes, this is the last time or we're going to have to charge more. And 9 times out of 10, it eliminates the back and forth. And they go, it's fine, let's just make this one change and we'll be done with it. And you can be done with this particular product and you can invoice and get paid. The next is setting the expectations around what the scope of work is and gaining clarity on that before you even hit record. So in the discovery call, what we're doing is asking a number of different questions in terms of what is required to make this project a success. And it's literally dozens of different questions. Things like what deliverables are needed, how many days of production, what is the exact project timeline, what are the elements needed for this project to be a successful edit. Example, graphic treatments, scripts, approved voiceovers, shot listing, approved motion graphics, any design collateral that they may have that includes logos and font types and colors that need to be implemented. But the most important thing is that you're asking for these things before the project actually takes place. And the great thing is that it not only sets boundaries around what the scope of work is, but it also sends a significant message back to your client that you have utmost professionalism in what you're doing and the experience to be asking these types of questions, which inevitably builds trust in your ability to accomplish the task that they're asking for. That's great for both parties all around. But to me, the most important element of this particular type of questioning is that it eliminates the ability for the client to come back and change the scope of work that they're requesting because you've ironed all these things out beforehand, and that's not within this particular contract. That could be another discussion, but not this one. Now let's talk about the lack of vision and positioning from your client. Now, Teegarden, what are you talking about? What does this actually mean? Allow me to explain. I think you could tell a lot about your client based off of who you're talking to and the responses they have to the questions above. If you're talking to the owner of the CEO of a company, chances are you're talking to a younger company that doesn't really have a clear vision on what their positioning is in the particular marketplace. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing per se, but what that tends to lead to is the over-reliance on you as the creative contractor to help solve problems for that particular client and ambiguity in terms of what they want from you and how it's going to be representative of their brand. The best projects I have done to date have come from brands that have an unbelievably clear vision on who they are and what their market positioning is, and more importantly, what it is not. They've done the design work. They understand who their target customers are. They know what their product does and who it's for. And consequently, we can create much better art and communicate to that potential client way better than if there's just nonsense that's going back and forth on we think it should be this and maybe it should be that or maybe it should be this thing. That doesn't really lead to clear, concise direction. And so we can't really do our best job for that particular client and talk to that customer because they don't even know what they're looking for. Now, when you get placed in the position of being told, like, you guys take care of it, it's creative control on your side, it may seem fun and you have this ability to kind of create something interesting, but inevitably it just leads to chaos. It'd be like playing football with no out of bounds markers. It sounds fun in theory because you can do whatever you want to, but inevitably it's going to lead to questions of who is responsible for which particular thing and a bunch of finger pointing on how to get that ball to the end zone and get the W for everyone. Some red flags that we continuously hear are things like the creative has the ultimate creative control. No, we don't. You respond to things like this by saying, great. So we just want to be clear that if we give anything to you, you're going to approve it with no notes at all. 9 times out of 10, the client's going to be singing a very different song when you put the ball back in their court. Another one we hear all the time is, we just need a quick 15-second edit. No, you don't. I need some boundaries. Give me examples of what you're talking about. And also, just so you know, creating a 15-second edit is infinitely more difficult than creating a 2-minute edit because every millisecond in that particular edit counts. Give us some boundaries. Last 2 things that we hear all the time are, we don't really have a timeline. Yes, you do. You have a product launch, you have some sort of thing and a deadline that you need to make sure happens. Give us some boundaries so that we know exactly what we're talking about. If we have infinite time, you're never getting the project. And the last thing, and the funniest one that I hear all the time is, well, we don't really have an idea of what our budget is. You absolutely have a number in mind. And our ability to successfully complete that project is completely dependent on the type of range that you are comfortable in spending. I often use this idea of we can get to any destination, by using a Geo Metro or a Pinto or a Maybach and a Bentley? Which vehicle are we using to get from point A to point B? And we can provide solutions on both ends of that spectrum, and anywhere in between. We just need to know what we're dealing with. Now, lastly, let's have a creative to creative conversation here, okay? I just want to remind everyone, myself included, that 9 times out of 10, frustration about notes have almost nothing to do with your ability and skill set as a creative as much as they do your ability to communicate and create effective and clear boundaries on what notes look like. I've fallen prey to this all the time, where I used to get so frustrated at the ability for clients to come back and massacre the work that we did. And I took it personally as if I did something wrong. I know I have the skill set to compete at all levels and create beautiful art. I have the invoices and client lists to prove it. But it doesn't mean that I don't have to do my job as a business owner of creating clear and concise boundaries and expectations of what my clients are supposed to do to engage with me back and forth. And so I want to encourage you to really not take it personally. Take a beat. Be slow to respond, and make sure that you understand that you're building bridges in order to make sure that you have a successful long-term career. And clients will almost invariably understand and remember how you made them feel rather than how dope your art was. So just take it slow, make sure that you're clearly communicating, and you're working towards being kind and responsive and a service provider rather than trying to make your case so that you can win in terms of where your notes are concerned. And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that is another video in the can. If you liked the video, like the damn video. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for post notifications. If you're looking for some interesting stuff, down in the description, I have my freelancer contact form. If you're somebody out there that's always looking for work, we're always looking for dope people to put on our projects. So go ahead and check that thing out. And if you really want some cool stuff, we have a free video marketing playlist that I keep saying playlist, I mean playbook. We have a free video marketing playbook that gives you 10 different video types that you can be using with your clients to give them the best possible video suite of services that you can get. It's free. It's down in the description. Go ahead and check it out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.